Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're buckling up for a thrilling ride straight into the heart of Formula One. We're looking at the recent Austrian Grand Prix 2025, specifically. We've got some fascinating sources here, including a detailed analysis with these unique notes or grades for each driver's performance. So our mission today, go beyond the headlines, unpack the real highs, the lows, and those totally unexpected moments that defined the race at the Red Bull Ring. Really help you understand what actually went down.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating about these grades, these notes, is they don't just tell you who finished where, do they? They kind of paint the whole picture. You see the chaos, the strategy, sometimes just sheer bad luck that shaped it all. We'll be digging into why each driver got their grade and, what that really means for their season, their team looking ahead.
Okay, let's dive in then. Maybe start with the drivers who, had a weekend they'd probably rather forget. Carlos Sainz first. Sounds like his car just wasn't playing ball even before the lights went out.
Yeah.
A no note for him. Does that even cover it?
It's very telling, isn't it? That no note. It's almost like a mark of just pure mechanical failure. The analysis pointed out, qualifying 19th with problems already.
Right.
Then the car gets stuck on the formation lap.
Oh, man.
Then a burst pipe, burning brakes. It was just, the sources called it a surreal sequence of failures. For a driver like Sainz, not even getting to properly start and through no fault of his own, that's a massive blow. More than just points lost. It's like the whole weekend's data momentum just gone.
Brutal. And Max Verstappen also got a no note, but for a completely different reason, right? Just caught up in that early crash.
Exactly. Which brings up that interesting point about these grades, doesn't it? Yeah.
How do you grade someone whose race ends on lap 1?
Right. Verstappen was just out. Totally wiped out by Antonella's accident. Absolutely nothing he could do. So a no-note reflects, nothing to grade, but it feels more like a big asterisk, a mischance, not a measure of his performance, the ultimate what if.
And speaking of Antonella, he did get a note, a 4, which is basically a failing grade. What went wrong there, according to the sources? What was the big mistake?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting. The analysis called it straight up a rookie mistake. Harsh maybe, but probably fair. He lost control going into the inside of turn 3. That's what triggered the whole thing.
Yeah.
And while he has obviously got huge talent, it just highlights that massive risk, doesn't it? Putting a debutant straight into a top team. These are the kind of accidents that, maybe a more experienced driver avoids. They know the limits, or they're just a bit more cautious on those frantic opening laps. Shows that potential needs time to bake, really.
Definitely needs time.
Yeah.
Okay, next in this, let's call it the tough weekend group, Yuki Tsunoda. The sources were pretty blunt, said he's lost. What's this dangerous dynamic they mentioned?
Yeah, lost is strong. This dangerous dynamic seems to be this pattern, aggressive moves, unforced errors, penalties stacking up, qualified way down in 18th, then had that big error, tangled with Colapinto.
Right, got penalties for that.
Yep, a hefty 10-second penalty, dropped him right to the back. The insight here is he's got the raw speed sometimes, but this tendency to overdo it or misjudge things, it costs the team points, big points, puts them under pressure, especially when, as the source noted, there isn't exactly someone banging down the door to replace him right now. So he's kind of secure, but it's, tricky for the team.
And that contact with Tsunoda, how did that affect Franco Colapinto? He started pretty well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. Started 10th, got up to 11th initially on those softs, but his race ended up being described as pretty discreet. That tangle with Tsunoda definitely hampered him. He finished down in 15th. Seems like he lost pace in that first stint, especially on the soft tires. And then, just to make things worse, he got another penalty later for contact with Piastri.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 5 seconds. Didn't change his final position, but it just added to a messy day where he couldn't really find a rhythm.
Okay, let's look at Lance Stroll and Pierre Gasly. Sounds like their races also kind of fizzled out after promising starts. What happened there?
Yeah, the sources used a great phrase. They had honey on the lips at the start, tasted that early success, but it just slipped away. Stroll's race was called discreet. Team tried a strategy maybe meant for front runners while he was stuck in traffic. Didn't work.
Started 16th, finished
13th. Recovered a bit. They tried a late switch to softs, but didn't pay off. Gasly, though, wow, what a first lap. Beastly was the word used. Shot up to 6th, leading the midfield battle. But then it just dissolved. Finished 13th, same as Stroll. Both cases show how tough that midfield is. Early promise means nothing if the strategy doesn't work out perfectly.
And then we have Hajar and Lewis Hamilton, both got a 6-foot, both described as having discrete races, even Hamilton finishing 4th. What does a 6-foot mean for guys like them? Is it just meh? Average.
It's definitely more than just average. It suggests a missed opportunity, maybe, or just not quite hitting their usual high standards or the car's potential. For Hajar, the description was disappeared, lukewarm. Yeah. He did benefit from the safety car, switched strategy, soft to medium, actually led a few laps, which was kind of cool.
Like a guest appearance at the front.
Exactly. The source likened it to a hypercar leading 5 laps, knowing it won't last. Predictably, his tires gave out, dropped to 12th, for Hamilton finishing 4th.
Yeah, not a disaster, but the notes highlighted that little step against his teammate was still there. Ran pretty much alone after the safety car, but the key thing was he seemed like quite a bit off Leclerc's pace in that first stint. So it's not just about Lewis. It points to Mercedes maybe still struggling to get both cars consistently in that sweet spot. That seems to be their ongoing challenge.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, that covers the drivers facing big challenges. Let's switch gears. Talk about the drivers who pulled off pretty solid performances, even if the final result doesn't scream hero. Alex Albon, first to 7, but such a bitter ending for him.
Oh, absolutely gutting for Williams and for Alex. Started 12th. Amazing start up to 7th.
Yeah, he was flying early on. Totally. By lap 10, he was P6, leading the whole midfield pack, even past Gasly, cleanly on track. The feeling from the analysis was Williams really could have scored big points here, maybe should have pitted earlier to cover undercuts. But then, lap 17, mechanical failure, had to retire. Just a real shame. Showed what he could do, but the car let him down. Crushing.
So tough. Okay, more positively, Oliver Bierman and Esteban Ocon both got 7s. Sounds like they had really strong recovery drives. What stood out?
Yeah, both showed great fight. Behrman started 15th, finished 11th. Impressive stuff. He really benefited from that lap 1 chaos, and crucially, his team committed him to a 2-stop strategy early on. Let him attack all race.
Clark.
Yeah. He was 12th after his first stop, held it, then skillfully passed Hajar right near the end when Hajar's tires were gone. Ocon started even further back 17th, climbed all the way to 10th, into the points.
How do you manage that?
Ran a really long first stint, just nursed those tires and basically scratched what was possible out of it, as the source put it. He also passed Hajar to grab that final point. Fantastic recovery from way back there.
Good drives. From both. Now, George Russell. Also a 7-bin, but the note sounded a bit worried about Mercedes. A discreet race for someone who won there last year. Talked about scary echoes of 2024. Is this a real concern?
I think it is, yeah. That's a critical point the analysis raised. 5th place is okay, but discreet for the previous year's winner. It definitely brings back those uncomfortable memories of the 2024 Mercedes. You know, quick 1 week, nowhere the next.
But consistent.
Exactly. Russell ran mostly alone. Wasn't really threatened from behind after the safety car, but crucially, he couldn't challenge the Ferraris ahead either. It implies Mercedes hasn't quite nailed those core car issues. Leads to questions about their consistency going forward, even with that strong engine. It feels less like a blip, more like a symptom they're still battling.
Okay. Moving up the grid then, Charles Leclerc. Got a podium, finished 3rd, but sounds like maybe not the happiest podium. He went for that aggressive move on Norris early on. Strategic error, or just a risk that didn't quite work.
It's interesting how you look at it, isn't it? He started 2nd, went straight for the inside against Norris, super aggressive.
Yeah, trying to take the lead immediately.
But in doing that, he basically just swung the door wide open for Piastri to sweep around the outside into 2nd. That move effectively cost Charles a direct fight with Norris. He finished 3rd, yeah, but totally on his own, miles out of DRS range from the McLarens. Now, the sources did suggest maybe if he'd just slotted into 2nd held position, like, say, Verstappen often does.
Norris might have just checked out.
Exactly. Might have pulled away by 5-6 seconds right at the start, made the lead battle even less exciting. So Leclerc's aggression, while it cost him P2 personally, it did kind of inject some drama at the front, even if it wasn't the best result for him. A calculated risk that made the opening laps more interesting, maybe.
I see the argument. Okay, now for the real standouts, the drivers who delivered those aha moments. Gebi Bortolito in 8. His first points in F1. What made his drive so special beyond just getting on the scoreboard?
Yeah, huge step for him and for his team, too. Started 8th, finished 8th. Now, okay, he benefited from Albon retiring and Gasly fading.
Sure, there's always context.
Always. But he wasn't just handed it. He actually passed Gasly on track earlier. And crucially, he was the best of everyone on his strategy, only beaten by guys who made a one-stop work. He even battled Alonso for a bit, closed a huge gap after his stop, briefly got past him in turn 3. It really showed genuine pace and racecraft, a properly earned first points finish.
Fantastic for him. And Fernando Alonso, also an 8. described as one of the big winners of the day.
Hmm?
How did he pull that off from 11th? And what's this mean for Aston Martin?
Classic Alonso, really. Just highlights his consistent quality. Started 11th, finished 7th. That matches his Canada result, which is great. And importantly, he's now tied on points with Stroll in the standings. That's a big shift in the team dynamic. Suggests he's really getting on top of things.
How do you do it tactically?
The one-stop strategy was absolutely key. Ran super long on his first set of tires, then defended brilliantly against Bortolito. The notes mentioned 2 moments of cunning, using DRS in turn 4 to immediately retake the place after being passed in turn 3,
Over?
and then managing the leaders perfectly to back Bortolito up right at the end. Just a masterclass in strategy and defense. Still showing everyone how it's done, even in the midfield.
Never count him out.
No.
Okay, another 8 feet for Liam Lawson. Very impressive, especially after what the sources called a horrible start.
Yeah.
How did he recover?
Yeah, that recovery was really impressive. Showed maturity from him and quick thinking from the team. That start was rough, dropped from 6th down in 9th. But his team reacted brilliantly, switched him onto a one-stop strategy, and it just worked perfectly for him. He steadily climbed back up, was even running as high as 5th at one point before Russell on the faster 2-stop got past him eventually, stopped on lap 33, then just picked people off as they pitted later, showed real composure under pressure, especially since, there were questions about his form earlier this year. That was a statement drive.
Definitely sounds like it. Oscar Piastri, another 8-month finishing second.
Yeah.
What was his story? Especially that dynamic with Norris.
Yeah, Piastri drove really well. He was definitely the immediate beneficiary of Leclerc's aggressive start, just slotted right into P2.
Good opportunism.
Absolutely. And from there, he and Lando just pulled away from the Ferraris, created a big gap. That first stint was really exciting between them, actually. Piastri got past Norris briefly in turn 3.
Okay.
But Lando got him straight back in turn 4. That classic Red Bull ring back and forth. Oscar's only real wobble was a brake lockup in turn 4 around lap 20. Nearly tagged his teammate there.
Close call.
Very close. He ran 4 laps longer than Lando in that first stint. Showed good pace late on, but Lando just had enough to keep him behind. A very strong, controlled P2, though. Great job by him.
Okay, and finally, the top marks, the 9s, Nico Hülkenberg and Lando Norris. Let's start with Hulk, P20 to P9. That's just incredible.
It really is where it gets compelling, isn't it? Started dead last, 20th. Finished 9th. Huge points for the team. The absolute key, according to the analysis, was brilliant strategic thinking. Pitting super early lap 13.
Lap 13, wow.
Yeah. Gave him loads of clean air. The undercut was massive. He just leapfrogged car after car. The sources said his car's rhythm was just another thing this weekend, meaning exceptionally good. He went from 16th up to 9th just in that first pit stop cycle.
Yeah.
Just pure strategy and pace paying off massively. Maximize absolutely everything.
Incredible execution. And Lando Norris, the winner, also at 9 pit. How did the analysis evaluate his win? What does it signal?
Simple verdict, really.
Yeah.
He did everything well.
Ah.
Okay. Maybe benefited slightly from those Q3 yellow flags hurting others.
A little bit of luck never hurts.
Never hurts. But his race performance, stellar. Defended perfectly from Leclerc at the start. Managed Piastri when he attacked. Stayed totally firm under pressure. And the sources really highlighted that his growing consistency, his maturity, didn't buckle when Piastri came at him early. Just held his nerve, bagged the full 25 points, and this win, could really set him up for a strong, consistent second half of the season. Shows that control, that ability to manage from the front is getting better and better, and if you connect it back to those power rankings the analysis mentioned, Norris is right back up there, tied with Leclerc again at the top. The top 3 overall haven't changed much, but this race definitely shook up the lower ranks in those rankings. Bortolito made a big jump, Alonso hit that 7-point mark. It shows how individual races can really shift perceptions of form.
So wrapping this all up, what does this Austrian GP tell us about the rest of the season? We saw amazing comebacks, painful mechanical failures, those rookie errors, the usual F1 roller coaster, really.
It really does raise some big questions, doesn't it? How will these dynamics play out, especially at, say, Aston Martin? Can Alonso keep this up? Will Stroll respond? And Mercedes, will they finally find that consistency week to week? These kinds of deep dives, looking at why drivers finished where they did, give you so much more insight than just the points table heading towards Silverstone and the rest of the year.
Absolutely. Whether you're a diehard F1 fan or maybe just getting into it, understanding these detailed notes, these performances, gives you such a richer view. You see the strategy, the skill, sometimes the pure luck involved. It paints a much more complete picture of what really happened out there.
Exactly. And remember, knowledge is best when you chew on it, apply it. So, thinking about this Austrian race after our chat, What really stood out to you? Keep pondering those questions, keep exploring the details, and definitely join us for the next deep dive.